This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Russo'sBrand.com. I am Vince Russo. And you guys know I do many shows on the brand. I cover many topics. And sometimes I hear from people within the industry that I don't know and I've never spoken to before. And they reach out to me. Maybe there's something they want to discuss, or they have an issue, or they have some questions, or maybe just some things to get off their chest. Now, listen, man, whether you believe this or not, I am a 60-year-old man. I have a lot of wisdom. I've got years. I've got years in this experience, man. I got in wrestling 30 years ago. I know the players. I know the game. And I'm very realistic when it comes to the wrestling business. And one of my concerns has always been when young talent get into the wrestling business and they have a dream and they are willing to sacrifice everything because they want to see that dream come true. Many of them, I hear this story over and over and over. The first time they saw wrestling, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to become a professional wrestler, and they're willing to put into the time to work, to sacrifice hours on the road, beaten bodies, you name it. And every time I hear that, it really saddens me. Because I see these young talent with stars in their eyes, and they really have no idea of the underbelly of the wrestling business. And what makes it really difficult on my part is you can't tell them because they won't believe it. And nothing is going to sidetrack them from this dream. So in many cases, with a lot of people I've known, I've had to sit back and watch. And it's been painful to watch because once you get into the system, it is something completely different. I think my next guest may have experienced that. We're going to talk about this in detail. And I want to listen. I want to try to advise. And I want to see if I can help in any way. But I was contacted by a young lady from Australia. Her name is Kellyanne. Kelly is a wrestler at Ring of Honor. She has a bit of a history with Ring of Honor. She experienced a situation that I think has left scars. She was very hurt by this situation. It was something that she feels she wanted to talk about. I'm hoping I can just listen to what Kelly says, maybe shed some light on the situation, maybe give her some advice. But listen, man, at the end of the day, I don't like to see anybody hurting. And Kelly was so nice and so sincere when she contacted me that I said, you know what, Kelly, let's bring you on the show and let's talk about this. And here she is all the way. Are you in Australia now, Kelly?
I am. I'm in Victoria, Australia.
Now, are you still going through the very strict lockdowns?
Yeah. We've only just come out of lockdown. So now we're in our freedom phase, which means our curfew has just been lifted. We had a curfew till 9 p.m. We can now travel more than 15 kilometers. So that's like 30 miles. So that's great. That's good. We can shop outside. And so we've just come out of that. So, you know, it's kind of like freedom, but kind of not.
So Kelly, like what were the only, it sounds to me like the only things you're allowed to do is maybe go to the grocery store?
Yeah, we can go to the grocery store freely. That's good. Apart from that, though, you know, our streets are filled with police. And they're not nice police, you know. They're almost like terrorists on our streets. And I hate to sound extreme, but it is quite scary here. It really is. It doesn't feel like home. That's for sure.
Kelly, let me ask you this. Do you live alone?
No, I live with my partner.
Okay, so at least you had company. I mean, it just sounds to me, man, if you're alone and you can't leave the house, which means you can't see family, at least you have a partner. So at least you've been able to go through this with somebody. I would assume that was the only thing that kept your sanity.
To an extent. I mean, being home with your partner 24/7 isn't healthy for any relationship.
That's true too. That is true too. Yes.
My partner's lucky, well, not lucky, but he's always worked from home. So his life didn't really change. Whereas for me, this was new, to be kind of stuck in these four walls.
Yeah.
I was lucky because we live in the country. I got out of the city because I hated the city anyways. I really did. So in the country, we had a bit more freedoms. There wasn't as many police around, so I could walk, illegally, but, I might get arrested for that. Who knows? So yeah, it was good having your partner there, but that alone has its own problems. So yeah.
So Kelly, let me ask you this. Let's start at the beginning. Just so I can get a little bit more information on you. When did you launch and when did you start your wrestling career? Where did you start it?
Yeah, so I started wrestling 13 years ago. So I was 13 years old, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I got into wrestling when I was 6 years old. When I say into, that's when I got interested into it. And I was playing the video games as you do because we couldn't afford cable at that time. And my brother put on it was Know Your Role. And I didn't know what any of this was. I was just used to fighting games, whatever. And he puts this game on, and I choose a character, and I chose Lita. But at that time, I pronounced it as Litter because I hadn't seen anything on TV. So I'm like, I want to be Litter, right? Anyway, I became obsessed with the games. And then I became obsessed with wrestling to the point where that's all I thought about. And I knew that that's all I wanted to do. And so when I was about 13, I was walking down the street and I saw this poster on a pole and it said pro wrestling, and it was about 5 minutes away from my house. And I'm thinking, there's wrestling in Australia? I had no idea, right? So I run home to my mum and I'm like, can we go, please? She was a single parent and we didn't have much money, right? But she, spent her last bit of money on me to go to this show. And I remember walking into this hall and I just saw a ring. And instantly I'm going, this isn't WWF. Like, look at this. What is this? What do I know? I'm a kid. Anyways, I sit front row and the lights come on, the characters come out, and I'm obsessed. And that's when I asked, how do I train? Well, you have to be 16. Well, that's not good, is it? So I lied about my age and my mum lied for me. I wouldn't recommend anyone get into wrestling at that age, but nothing could stop me. And I started training at a company here called PCW. And my first training session, I walk in and there's this man who's about 50 years old. His name's Ken Rock and he's infamous in Australia. And I walk in and he's got no shirt on and I'm like, oh, that's a bit weird. And the first thing he does is he sits in the corner and he tells me to do a monkey flip. Now, I haven't done anything at this point. And he goes, you just run up, you jump on my lap, and you pull my head down and kick me off. And he had someone do it. And I've gone, it's easy enough, sure. Jumped up, fling him off, my mum's watching in horror. And then,
let me ask you this. I mean, you're 13 years old. I mean, approximately, like, what do you weigh at this point? Like 80 pounds?
Yeah, I was tiny. And I learned to back bump on that session. And you know what's embarrassing? I went to school the next day and I started back bumping on the grass in front of people to show them.
Oh my gosh.
And then I wonder why my body feels the way it does. So, yeah, I got into it at 13 down here in Australia.
But I would have to think, man, at 13, obviously your body is not developed. So now you're putting your body through all this training that it never experienced before. I mean, I would have to think at some point you would have had to think, F this. Like, I'm not, I got to think that, no?
Not once,
Wow, that's amazing.
I didn't think twice, like that was it. And I was training twice a week, and then that's what it was. My mum would come to every training session. She'd sit there, she'd watch. And there was just nothing else I wanted to do. That was it. And I was so happy, But
so now you start working shows locally, right?
yeah, I got thrown into a match and it was horrible, absolutely terrible. And I didn't know anything and I dressed up as leader because I wanted to be leader. It was just bad. I was in a rumble. I refused to get thrown out. It's just terrible. But yeah, I got thrown into into matches pretty quickly. And, I would come home with busted eyes, but I just loved it.
So I would have to assume for a lot of people, such as yourself, is the dream to wrestle for the big company. Once you learn about wrestling, once you start learning about the WWE, I mean, is it ever a thought that, you know what? I'm going to wrestle here in my country. I'm going to be a big star in Australia, and that's my goal. Or is it like immediately WWE or bust?
For me, it was WWE or bust. And that was because the product at the time was very good for me. However, now that I'm older and what I've learned, I would never touch that place. I wouldn't go near it. I really wouldn't. And that was hard for me to accept because when you have one goal in mind, and when that gets ripped away from you, when you experience things, it scars you, as you said, it really does. And I was scarred by WWE about many, many times. And I just can't believe that I'm in this position. I can't believe that I have to reach out to someone to finally feel like I can be heard for the first time, It's just crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy, Kelly, because you become cattle. You become cattle. You become, just another body in the system. You're not an individual. You're not treated like an. But before we get into all that,
yeah.
So how do you start making steps to come over and work in this country?
Well, I knew straight away that I had to get proper training. And my trainer at the time was trained by Lance Storm. And I thought that was amazing, right? So first thing I did at 18 years old, I had a trust fund, which I can talk about later, but I used that money to go to Canada and I trained with Lance for 3 months and I lived in the student house and it was the most amazing time of my life. That's when I understood wrestling. Before I went to Lance's, I was just going through the motions. I didn't quite understand the structure, the fundamentals, or anything like that. When I went to Lance's, I remember one day it really did just click. And it got to the point. So I think he's the best trainer in the world. And I don't care. I think he is, because I saw people that stepped into the ring for the first time ever. And then 3 months later, they're calling a match on the fly like it's nothing. Mm-hmm. And people can't do that, now, especially now, but people couldn't do that. And if I didn't go to Lance's, I would not be as confident as I am today. And there is no way I would be as good as I believe I am today as well. So that's what I did. I took the right steps, what I thought was right. In between that, a lot of shit happened. I lived with Teddy Hart at one point, which was insane. I trained at AAA. I got signed by AAA in 2013. However, it was a developmental contract, which meant no visa, which meant couldn't do that, especially as a young girl. So that's what I did. I did all the right steps. I wrestle at Shimmer. I've been doing that. I've been coming to America, emailing. I was emailing Ring of Honor every year, every time I went, to no avail. You know, so I was just doing everything right. I went to Germany. Well, like, I did my promos. You know, it just hurts because I feel like I did everything the right way. And I prided myself on not relying on social media and relying on me as a person, putting myself out there to get my character over. I don't need to intertwine my personal life. So to get where I did without doing what everyone else is doing, I'm proud, but I also feel like I'm being punished for not going against what I believe.
Okay, explain that to me. How do you feel you're being punished?
So I've always been a strong believer in, and I don't care how silly this sounds, but I believe in the mystery of wrestling, and I believe that you should keep your character separate from your personal life, especially online. And I'm going by experience as a kid. When I first found out Kane's real name was Glenn Jacobs, it ruined a piece of magic for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got into wrestling, I knew that I wanted to create a character or the same feeling that I had for other people. And by doing that, I know that the fans I do have at the moment are real fans. But I noticed maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I noticed people getting given opportunities almost for the amount of followers they had, or they would get signed for, you know, for being an influencer as well as a wrestler, or, you know, people were getting all this attention for putting their personal life online. And I couldn't keep up. And I especially couldn't keep up with what women today are doing. And that's all with the OnlyFans and all this. And I just don't think that it's healthy for wrestlers to attach their personal life to their wrestling. And I think it's detrimental and it just gets messy. And I didn't do that. And I know that if I did do that, I would have a lot more followers and a lot more whatever. And if I posted regularly, maybe I'd get whatever. But it just feels so empty, Vince.
Well, let me ask you this though, Kelly, because you seem like a very intelligent woman to me. And also starting in the business at 13, leaving family, leaving country, leaving everybody at 18, coming over here, living on your own and whatnot, living with Teddy Hart. Okay. I can also feel that you have a combination of being smart, you know, brain-wise, but also street smart. You've been around. What you did is not easy, and not anybody could do that. Leaving it home at 18, you're around all these strange. That is very difficult to do. And I don't want to sound sexist or anything like that, but I mean, you know, especially for a woman, because think with a woman, there's a little bit more danger involved. You know, you're in an industry around a lot of guys that you don't know, a lot of marks. It's I've seen that with women that I've worked with, and it's scary at times.
It is definitely scary, especially, you know, when I was in Mexico at 19. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything. I was going to training 3 times a day. I was training with Skyder, Silver King. You know, I was getting trains everywhere, but I didn't care because I had to do it.
Right.
You know?
But Kelly, here's the reason why I bring that up. Because I've learned this especially with social media. And, you know, Kelly, I'm going to be honest with you, and I get in a lot of trouble for saying a lot of things that I say because I don't really worry about being politically correct. I've worked with a lot of women. The women I see on TV today, I got to be honest with you, Kelly. When I see young women change their body and change their features, and every month they look different, and I'm like, what's going on here? That to me is just very sad and disturbing, because I know whatever I worked at 3 different companies. Whatever woman I worked with what that woman had. So whether it was an Awesome Kong, or whether it was a Gail Kim, or whether it was a Mickey James, like I worked with that individual.
Yeah.
Never did I want that individual to change appearance or, get, implants. I mean,
Yeah.
that was not important to me, because to me they were all unique. So when I see this is very disturbing to me.
Yeah.
I've had my issues with social media for a very, very, very long time. But I finally came to the understanding that I cannot let social media own me. I've got to own it. So my question to you is, when it comes to social media, and we all know that's important to everybody, especially numbers, that's important. Could you not work social media like as the character and achieve what other women may be achieving, but doing it the right way? Because I think you're smart enough to do that.
Well,
I saw you are verified. I mean, being verified is a huge thing. You've already accomplished that.
Yeah. Well, look, it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I've been doing, Vince, for the past, 5 or so years. If you go on my social media, everything's in character. Everything I post has attitude behind it. All my promos on there are spoken, and there's no editing, nothing. It's just me speaking to the camera. Everything I've done is, I haven't relied on social media at all. And yeah, I did get verified, and that was because of Ring of Honor. So, after everything, at least I got a nice blue tick. But as you said about owning social media, me talking to you today is me doing that, because this is the first time.
Well, you're gonna get all kinds of heat. Yeah,
I know. I'm ready for it, because
okay, all right, okay,
yeah, I feel like I've been silenced for a long time.
Well, Kelly, let me ask you this. Okay, let's get into the meat of this now.
Yeah.
What happened with Ring of Honor? Because it like I said, when I was reading your notes to me, I could tell this is a young lady that's wounded and hurt and emotional, and I can't just know that and let you be out there. I've got to connect to that. Listen, you probably worked with her. You probably worked with Daphne at Shimmer.
I did.
Okay, her and I were very, very, very close. You saw what happened to her. When I get an email from somebody like you, I cannot let that go unaddressed. I've got to address that. So tell me, walk me through the series of events that brought you to contacting me, more or less.
Yeah, well, I was signed in 2019, and that was a big thanks to Marty Skirl. If it wasn't for him, none of us here would have been signed. And I remember I got a phone call from Greg, and I was at work, and he offered me a deal, and I don't know how much I can talk about it, but it wasn't very good, but I did it anyways, because it's the first time, And I was meant to actually debut on their 17th anniversary. I was meant to debut. I was meant to win a match, go into the tournament, go against Serena Deeb into the finals, amazing, right? Well, like what more could you want?
So
I remember,
you're told all this upon signing the contract. So
yes,
this is 2019.
correct. Yep.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
2019, I'm told all this, and I keep getting told this is going to be massive. We're building this division around you. It's going to be huge, you know. So I believed it, and I remember I signed the contract, and as I signed it, something in the back of my head said this isn't going to happen. Anyways, I'm not saying I'm a psychic, but about 3 months later, the pandemic hit, right? Everything's cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm okay with that because it's out of my control, right? I can't do anything. So I did what any good wrestler would do. And I said, well, I still have to get myself out there. I haven't debuted. What do I do? So my partner is extremely talented when it comes to structuring promos and all that. So we went and filmed promos, and I put out Ask Me Anything is where I kind of made fun of people that do Ask Me Anything, and they would I'd answer ridiculous questions. And I'd do that once a week, and it was getting over, And then I noticed that whatever I was doing wasn't getting shared on their socials. I would have to prompt them to share things, and that didn't feel very good. I felt a bit
Kellyanne,
silly.
let me ask you a question right there. But okay, so pandemic hits, you're in Australia now, but you're still promoting the company and what you're
Yes.
doing. Are they running shows at this time, or are they shut down?
They had shut down at this point because I think America was pretty quick to shut down very quick and then reopen.
Yeah.
So they had shut down. So they understood, and they were great with communication at the start. This is where we're at, whatever. And so they eventually did start doing shows again, and that was without crowds. And during that time, we were told, so pandemic hit March, filming promos, whatnot. This flows into it. So it goes from promos, and then I remember I noticed I wasn't getting much back from that. Kevin Eck reached out to me, who was a writer, and he said, look, I've seen your promos. I think you'd be a good writer. Do you want to give it a go? Boom, gave it a go. Here I am.
Kevin Eck works for Ring of Honor. Okay.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was writing for their website. I was doing articles, and that took a lot of time. And there was no pay. They didn't offer, which is cool, whatever. But it took a lot of time. And I had a full-time job at that time. And if I didn't have my article in by a certain time or day, and keep in mind the time difference, I would get emails about it. And that didn't feel good either. So we noticed a lack of communication probably towards the end of the year last year. We were sending emails to Greg because we didn't know what was going on. They were running shows, and it kind of just felt like we were just getting left behind. And this was all the international.
When you say we, who's we?
So there's two other Aussies. There's Adam Brooks and Slex, who is signed as well.
Okay, so the three of you are kind of working together. You're all supposed to go to Ring of Honor. You're trying to contact them, but they seem not to be answering back.
That's right.
Okay.
And, we were planning to move there, all of us. So we put our life on hold for 2 years,
Yeah.
And that's 2 years I could have spent doing something else. So, and so we were we had no communication at all. And the women's tournament was coming up. Now, just prior to this, Speaking Out had happened, and Marty Skrull was let go. So I knew that probably wasn't good for us because he was the one that was rooting for us. So after that, no communication whatsoever. Emails left unanswered. That's it. I remember I had a meeting with me, Session Moth.
Hold on, let me stop you there for a second before you get to the meeting. So you have a signed contract with them, but you are not getting paid during this time because the contract, you have to work to get paid.
That's right. So it was per appearance. We weren't getting paid.
Okay.
However, you know, what was kind of awkward and embarrassing is the fact that everyone else that was getting paid by Ring of Honor would make a deal about it because, oh, we're getting paid through the pandemic and, you know, on the podcast, we're getting paid. So then when I was asked about it, I felt almost pressured because they did pay us once, and that was for the events that we were meant to do that we didn't get to do. So I said, yeah, they're looking after us because I don't want to be the one saying they're not, because then it becomes a thing.
Right.
So that felt shit. Like I felt like a loser almost. So I didn't like that either. And so, yeah, when we were left unanswered, me and Session Moss especially were pretty upset because me and her were very excited. You know, we had both been on the indies for a long time and it felt really good. So for this not to work out, it just sucked. But as I was saying about the meeting, we had a meeting a few months ago with Maria and I forgot who else. And they basically said, you're here in September. You guys are come in as a team. It's going to be amazing. Can't wait. Share it on your socials. Get it all going. Right. So we did.
So you had a meeting with people from Ring of Honor. This is happening. Right. Start promoting it. Put it on your socials. When you say Maria, are you talking Maria Kanellis?
That's right.
Okay.
And I have no problem with her at all. I think she's fantastic, amazing, whatever. But, you know, to be told that, I was holding on to that for this past 2 years. All I had was this hope of Ring of Honor working out to keep me going through this. And what was bad is that I had to do, when I would see people here in Australia, they're going, why are you still here? Like, what's going on? And I feel like an idiot. So I'm like, oh, they said this month, and then it's the next month, and it's the next. And then you see everyone else is flying in and out, but we're not. So what's going on? You know, are you just going to ignore the internationals? You know, Joe Hendy is one of their main guys. They're just not using him. They're not going to communicate with him. So when September came and went, I knew something was up. No communication at all again. Once again, my articles are not getting shared that take hours to do. And I'll never forget it. I woke up one morning, as I do, and I open up my emails, and there's an email from Greg. And I've gone, oh, cool. I open it, and it is the most empty, emotionless email I've ever received. And I couldn't believe it. And I'd like to read it out if that's okay, because it's so blunt and it felt like shit. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
All right.
When is this dated, Kellyanne? What's the date?
This is dated 2nd of October.
So a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago. Good afternoon. I hope you and your family are safe and doing well. Unfortunately, I'm writing with sad news. The US government has come back yet again with another request for evidence. For some reason, they aren't pushing your visa through. At this point, we aren't in a position to keep paying the attorneys to keep revising and submitting the case without guarantee. This would mean your contract with us is null and void. I am deeply sorry that it didn't work out, and I hope there may be an opportunity in the future.
And that's after 2 years.
2 years and no appreciation, no communication. And to say null and void, like, I couldn't believe it. It just felt like I had just been thrown away. It felt crap. And what annoys me, Vince, is I was warned by Joey Mercury when I signed about Greg. I had heard about the court cases with Kelly Klein. I had heard about how unhappy the women were with the contracts. Okay. And it's no better. It hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. And so everything I thought about him was true. And unfortunately, it now makes me look at Ring of Honor in a completely different light. Because Ring of Honor to me, when I was growing up, was the embodiment of pure wrestling in a sense. It was independent wrestling. It was honor. It was respect. Where is it? Is this how you treat people? You waste 2 years of their life, you ignore them, then you just say they're null and void?
Okay, let me ask you this first of all. Number one, did you have an attorney look at your contract to make sure it is indeed null and void?
No.
Okay. You probably should do that. You probably should have an attorney look at your contract and see if you have a legal leg to stand on, being that you put 2 years of your life on hold. You were under contract with them. That's the first thing that I would do. I
didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I would definitely have an attorney look at that and say, listen, can I hold their feet to the fire? Or, see, that's the thing with wrestling contracts, Kellyanne. Trust me, there are so many loopholes for the company to get out of the contract. So many loopholes. You sign up with, I don't know about AEW, but you sign up with the WWE. If they want to get out of your contract, they can get out of it. There's a million loopholes. So there probably is here too with you, but I would definitely get an attorney to check this out anyway and let them take a look at the contract and see. Now, see, here's what I was thinking all along when you were telling me the story. And this is what I hate about the wrestling business, okay? It probably was in the middle of the pandemic. Listen, let's face it and let's be honest. First of all, I'm giving Ring of Honor the benefit of the doubt, okay? If there were no pandemic, this would have probably never happened. It would have been business as usual. You would have, went over there work and you would have done your thing. But the pandemic happened. Now, they can't help the pandemic happen. You can't help the pandemic happen. But as you're telling me this story, I'm starting to realize it was probably a major pain in the ass for them to attempt to bring you over. Okay, now I can only speak for myself. If that's the case, I'm being honest with you. And I'm telling you what's going on as it's going on. We're trying to bring you over. We're running into problems with your visa and the government and this, that, and the other thing. I would keep you in contact. When you reached out to me, I would answer that email even if I had nothing to say, because out of respect for you, I'm going to answer that email.
Yeah.
But that's me. I mean, that is me. At the end of the day, Kelly, like, this is the wrestling business. And I hate to say it, but I've seen it at every level I worked in. This is how talent gets treated. Kelly, I'm telling you, I saw it firsthand, and I tell this story all the time. With my own eyes, and I was there, and I was smack in the middle of it, I saw Shawn Michaels get kicked to the curb because Vince McMahon had a shiny new toy in Steve Austin. And regardless of all the work Shawn had done, regardless of how many appearances, the beaten down body, the getting addicted to painkillers, regardless of all that, as soon as Vince had another individual who was now going to make him more money, he kicked Shawn to the curb like yesterday's news. So my point is, if that can happen to Shawn Michaels, that can happen to Kellyanne, and that has happened to a lot of people.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I've had rose-colored glasses on about wrestling for a very long time. However, before I signed here, I was very close to quitting anyways, because what is happening in wrestling today, I believe, isn't wrestling. I struggle to watch any of the products, and that includes Ring of Honor. So, for me, when I turn on the TV, and I'll be honest, I haven't watched a wrestling show for many years because I've struggled so hard with it. I'm watching these matches, and it feels like spots connected to spots. with no rhyme or reason. And it just feels silly to do it because I've tried to do it and it felt silly. So, what I was trying to say though is I understood where wrestling was heading, and I understood that this was my last go. And I knew that because of their pandemic, there was a high chance I wasn't going to do it. I knew that. However, I don't believe what Greg said in the email. And I say that because Luke and Adam got their visas with no problem. They processed the boys' visas before mine. I'm not saying, oh, well, poor me, I'm a girl, whatever. I'm not. However, I was the only one that was really doing anything from here. I was the only one that was trying to do something, and I was providing them content every week. So to not have any acknowledgement or appreciation from him when he fires me, I don't care who you are. I'm still a human, and he's a human being too. At least acknowledge the work that someone has done for you. And I know I'm not anyone, right? I'm not Stone Cold. I'm not HBK, right? I'm not. But I'm still a person that's dedicated their life to this. And I'm still a person that signed your contract with the hope of trying to help your company because it needed it, especially with the women's division. So I don't believe that he's being sincere. And yes, I understand that Ring of Honor went through a hard time, as every company did. But when every other company can fly people in and out, why can't Ring of Honor? And it's not hard. Once the visa's done, all you need is to write an exemption, and we could have flown over. We could have been flying back and forth for the last year, but he just didn't. He just didn't. I looked it up. I researched it all. And the fact that this visa had a problem and I wasn't asked about it, I wasn't asked to provide any evidence, which is what they're meant to do, that pisses me off too. Because I contacted the visa people myself and they said everything was fine. Everything's going to be fine. So what happened? And he's not being true because he hasn't responded to me. That shows someone that is weak and gutless, because I said to him, all I want from you is to tell Adam and Luke what's happening, because they have their families. Luke has kids. This is their lives. You can't just mess around with it, especially during a pandemic.
Okay. Kellyanne. So Kellyanne, what are you, if I did the math correctly, you're 26?
27.
Okay.
28. I'm 28. I've lost track of.
I have a daughter who's 25. So you're very close to my daughter's age. Listen, Kellyanne, let me tell you a few things. To this day, listen, did you watch wrestling during the Attitude Era?
Yes.
You know how many millions of people watch wrestling in the Attitude Era?
Oh, yeah.
You know how many few people watch wrestling today?
Yes.
Okay. To this day, I have never been acknowledged by Vince McMahon, including the very last exchange I had with him about a week ago. To this day, the man has not acknowledged me for what I did for his company. But Kellyanne, I'm going to tell you something, because this is what I see in you. I've said this a million times. You cannot be a good person and have a good heart and exist in the wrestling business. You can't, because if you don't play their game, they'll chew you up and spit you out. Bottom line. So if you go in a nice person, you either have to stay true to yourself or they're going to kill you. And they're going to rip every emotion out of you that you ever had. I mean, that is the business. My best friends in the wrestling business are on the outside looking in. You know why? Because they're good people. Yeah. They're good people. That's what I literally have 5 to 10 friends that tomorrow could change the wrestling business for the better. All of them are on the outside looking in because they're not politicians. They're not liars. They're not con men. They're not used car dealers. They're honestly good people. Now, here's the bottom line, and this is what I want. This is what I want you to try to get in here, okay? The fact that Vince McMahon does not acknowledge me, never has acknowledged me, and I see where his product is now. And it's the same with you. The journey you went on from 13 years old, moving to Canada when you were 18 years old, the writing the columns, the doing the stuff online, all that stuff that you did. Now, this Greg, I don't know Greg from a hole in the wall, but the bottom line is you were hurt by his actions. You were hurt because you don't think he was being honest with you. You were hurt because you think he lied to you. But at the end of the day, when you look at what you've done, whose loss is it? Is it your loss or is it Greg's loss? That's how I look at Vince McMahon. Bro, you don't want to acknowledge me. Look at your ratings. I'm doing fine here with my little podcast. I'm talking to Kellyanne. I got no problems, man. So at the end of the day, who lost? You know what you did. And he didn't appreciate it. But I'm going to tell you a couple of things, and this is what you got to remember. The wrestling business crushes dreams and crushes hopes. And what I always try to tell people that happens to, because they're, I know so many wrestlers that once their career was over, their life was over. Come on, let's be honest, Kellyanne. Shannon dealt with a little bit of that. So many wrestlers have, because that's the way the system is set up. Without them, you're a nobody. You'll never make it without them. I've heard the WWE tell people that. Oh, you can go, but your career will be over. You'll never amount to anything without us. So when a situation like this happens, here's what you got to look at. It went down this way because it was supposed to go down this way. You weren't supposed to be there. You were not supposed to be there. It's not that you failed or I could have done this or I could have done that. I am a big believer in God, and I'm not going to get all biblical on you, but I really do believe God writes our story. And there is a plan that he wants us to follow. And, there's going to be ups and downs till we finally get with his plan. So I am a firm believer with everything you're telling me. When I've got somebody training since she's 13, leaving her family, leaving a country when she's 18, training with Lance Storm. And I know even though Lance is another one that hates my guts, I know that's got to be a very, very strict and rigorous training. I understand that. Whatever the relationship was with Teddy Hart, the experience with Ring of Honor, all that. First of all, you got to understand one thing. That experience makes you so much stronger as a human being. When you could sit there at 28 and say, I endured A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and here I am. You are not going to gain the self-respect and the self-confidence that you have and the drive that you have without experience and all that. You've got to experience all that to grow as a person and now become smarter and understand, okay, like this is how this thing works. But the reality of the situation is you did everything you possibly can do. You were not supposed to be there, and you know what you bring to the table. So whose loss is it? Whose loss? You know with them not having you there, that is their loss. That is not your loss. But here's what I would tell you, because I think you're kind of at a fork in the road, because Kellyanne, like you, I am not a wrestling fan anymore. What I am watching today, it's not pro wrestling. If you want to name it something else, name it performance art. I won't have a problem with that. But as a kid that grew up with wrestling in the 70s and Hogan in the 80s, and I worked it in the 90s, this ain't that. So I have no interest in that. The wrestling business that you and I knew does not exist anymore. It's not there. So now all of a sudden it's like, man, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, this isn't what I used to want to do.
That's it.
So now what you have to do is, here's what you really have to do. You got to make a decision, because here's what you got to look at. And you got to be so real with yourself. Think about it, Kellyanne. With your talent, your drive, your determination, the reality of the situation is you can probably land somewhere, because you're going to work a lot harder than a lot of other people. The restrictions of COVID are going to be lifted. The fact that you are from Australia and you're an attractive young lady, all that's going to work for you. So the reality of the situation is, whether it's an AEW, whether it's an NWA, you can find a spot somewhere. But I think what you have to start asking yourself now is, if I continue to do what I'm doing and eventually I find a spot somewhere, am I going to be happy in this system? Am I going to be happy in this current state of professional wrestling? That's what you really, really have to ask yourself, because there's no doubt in my mind that you can get there again. But I think what you really have to, you got a little taste now of what this looks like. And believe me, I don't know Greg from a hole in the wall, but there are Gregs at AEW, there are Gregs at NWA, there are Gregs at the WWE, there are Gregs at every stop in the wrestling business. So what you have to really ask yourself is, you know who you are. You know your makeup. You know the kind of person you are. Can I exist in this type of a business? Because let me tell you something, Kelly, the higher and higher you climb that ladder, the more and more this becomes a part of the game. So the thing about you is, you've already created a brand. You already have a brand. You do have a following on social media. People liked what you do on social media. I can tell you on my own, I have not been associated with professional wrestling on that level in 10 years. How have I been able to make a living? How have I existed for 10 years? Real simple. I put all my stock in me.
Yeah.
You use social media to your advantage. You make money on YouTube. You make money on Twitch. You make money on Facebook. You control your own destiny. So my point is, you can continue to go down this road and you will land someplace else. But I am going to tell you, based on this conversation I had with you, it's going to be the same old, same old. That's never going to change. The fact of the matter is, you've already created yourself as a character and a presence and a personality in the wrestling business. Now, do you take all those chips and invest them in you? When I look at the money that like a Paige is making on Twitch, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You are a brand. You have already established that. So here's what I'm telling you. If you want to continue to chase the opportunity, which I think will present itself, there are other options more than that, because it has been proven that people can make a good living in the wrestling business, but not controlled by those of the wrestling business. If you're smart, and obviously you're a writer, you are doing these promos, you are working the social media. If you put all that stock in yourself, there is another way to do this. And that's what a lot of people do not understand.
Yeah. I mean, I have been thinking about this for a very long time. I was close to quitting already before Ring of Honor. I have made my decision, and one of the main reasons I did was because of Shannon. When she passed, that hit me. Now, I wasn't extremely close with her, but I grew up looking up to her. I thought she was awesome. When I met her, she was one of the most kindest and sweetest women I'd ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. And she was especially nice to me, and I was so nervous when I was over there. And she was beautiful. When she passed, and the way she did, and when you look into what happened and what led up to that, that literally broke my heart, because I honestly saw a lot of myself going towards that way too, because I know that I've done damage to myself because of wrestling. I know that my brain doesn't think the way it used to, and that's scary because I'm very young. My memory isn't right. You know, the concussions I've had, I shouldn't have had. So when that happened, I said to my partner, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't want to ever put myself in that position again, and I don't want to put anyone else in that position. So I know that I can't exist in this world, in this wrestling world, that is. I know that, like you said, as a nice person, and if you want to stay true to yourself, you really can't exist in this. And the thing is, even if I wanted to, Vince, I can't work with these people. Mm-hmm. I've tried to plan a match the way they plan it, and it doesn't make sense, and it feels empty. It doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm doing a dance or a sequence. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I went to England, I did this show, and we had an 8-minute match, and there was already like 14 matches on it. It's an all-girls show. And I remember I was wrestling this chick, and we had very little time to plan it. And I kept it very basic because that's just how I do it. And I was trying to tell some sort of story structure, something. And I remember she said, "So what other moves do you do?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Do you have any more moves?" Thinking, what? I said, "We've got 6 minutes. What do you mean? Do we need, right?" So I remember I said, "I mean, I could do a move, I guess." And after that experience, I remember I was just like, what is going on? This isn't what I want to do, because I have seen where wrestling is heading, and I specifically told myself I will never ever wrestle like that, because it goes against every fundamental to do with wrestling. Yep. How can you do a match when you don't have a good guy or a bad guy? How can you even be a heel in 2021? How can you? You can't offend anyone. You can't say anything. And what sucks, it sucks the art out of everything, the creativity out of everyone, you know. And I shouldn't have to think about everything I'm saying before I say it. And, oh, how will they take that word? And you say one word and they look at you funny. What do you mean by that? All that sort of stuff. You know, it's like, what is this? And cancel culture has ruined a lot of entertainment industries, a lot. But with wrestling, what's there to overcome? How can you tell a story of good overcoming evil when there's no evil? what's the point of intergender wrestling if I'm not showing any sort of difference in strength between me and this man just so I can empower women? That's not empowering women. Empowering women is two women going out there telling an amazing story and getting the story over wherever that is leading. That's empowering women, two women, not a man and a woman. A man throwing a woman in all these different moves where they don't have to actually do anything. What's the point? You can tell such a good story in intergender wrestling if you do it right, you know? Look at Mark Miro, you know? I loved him when I went back and I watched Raw 98 during lockdown. That was the first time I'd watched wrestling in about 5 years, Vince. It was the only time I watched shows from start to finish. What's that telling you? If I can't even stomach watching a company that I'm signed to, which was Ring of Honor, what the hell?
But if you still love what wrestling once was and you have a voice and an opinion, you could still do this on your own turn. Look, that's what I do. When I really sit down and I realistically think, okay, Vince, put yourself full time in the WWE, put yourself full time in AEW, working for Tony. I'd be nuts. I'd be out of my mind. It would not last a week. But I can come on here and do this because I know what I'm talking about and I make a lot of sense to a lot of people, which is exactly what you're doing. So what I'm saying is you don't have to put yourself through that.
Mm-mm.
Create your own brand. You can make money doing this, and you're doing it on your terms. You know, nobody's going to disrespect you or not appreciate what you're doing. You're doing it for you, and you're going to see growth, and it's going to be in your control. It's going to be your way. And I'm just saying you should think about that because I truly feel you'd be successful at that.
Well, I am leaning towards probably starting some kind of podcast or something like that because there is so much that I like to talk about. And I really would love to talk to wrestlers about their minds going into matches, what their idea is and what they think they're trying to get out of wrestling at the moment. I really would love to talk to people about that. And I especially want to talk to women about wrestling at the moment because I think women's wrestling honestly is at its worst than it's ever been. I really do, and I don't care how that sounds. I really don't. But you know, there was another reason why I contacted you, Vince, because there was something I did have to get off my chest, and I know that you respect free speech, and I understand that you know you're the only person that I feel I can talk to about this kind of stuff. Obviously, it's going out into the world, but I really wanted to talk about speaking out and from a different perspective. And for me, I have never put any of my problems online, anything about my personal life online. However, I am a victim, as they say, of sexual assault. My whole childhood was stolen by someone that was meant to protect me. Now, I don't ask for any sympathy, nothing. But, you know, my mum went through years and years of court. She represented herself as a single mother. And at the end of the day, we didn't win, despite all the evidence and everything. And I was given a certain amount of money that I get out when I am 18. And that's the money I use to pursue wrestling. Now, I prided myself on keeping my personal life away from wrestling. And I enjoyed that. It was the only way I stayed mentally well. When speaking out started, initially, I believe it was a good thing because, yeah, there's a lot of scumbags in every profession. especially wrestling. I know that because I was 13. I've seen a lot and experienced a lot. However, I don't put it online. Now, when that started happening, I noticed very quickly that this became almost a game very quickly. And it almost became a cult. And I felt pressured almost by women here and around the world to put out my stories, to out everyone. And if you don't, you're an enabler. Okay? Now, these people are thinking solely about themselves when they're putting this stuff online. And that's fine. I get it. You have to get things off your chest. And I understand that it feels good when other people are doing it. It gives you strength to do it. That's fine. Personally, for me, my experience, if I was to put my stuff online, I would feel like shit. It doesn't feel right. Okay. So I noticed that a lot of people were using this to further their personal vendettas against people. I saw people getting accused left, right, and center without any evidence whatsoever. I saw people's lives ruined. I saw people almost kill themselves. I saw people lose everything because of one tweet. Now, the reason why it affected me so much is because this was the first time that my personal life felt like it was intertwining with wrestling, and it wasn't my choice. I couldn't even go online because it affected me that much, and I didn't realize how much it was going to affect me. When I see women online getting justice when I couldn't, when I was younger, there's something in that. And when I say justice, their justice is canceling someone and ruining their life. And they got that with just one tweet. They didn't have to say anything. They just had to say this happened and this happened. Whereas I didn't get that justice. My justice was learning to forgive and priding myself on not being a victim and not identifying myself by what happened to me when I was younger. So how come my mum can't get justice? And I'm not saying it's to do with the court system, all that, whatever. I didn't get that justice, but these people did. And it made me feel sick because I couldn't go online without that in my face. And I understand that when a trending hashtag gets going, it gets going. But let's not be stupid. We all know that a lot of people lie to get over. That's what happens. All right. Now, what makes me really sick is here in Australia, there was a wrestler that was outed for something and it was bad. It was, okay? But I can tell you now that this promotion knew about it the whole time. And they even went up to the victim of that person and said, can you just keep it quiet because we need to keep the belt on him? Okay, so that happened 2 years prior to speaking out. So when that company put out a statement saying, look what we've done this, we got rid of him, all that, that's insincere and I don't like it. And I know I sound bitter, but I am, because why should I have to suffer with PTSD because of these people? Like, where's my hashtag? Where's my, like, I didn't get that. Like, what the hell's going on? What? And all it's done, it's made wrestling severely uncomfortable now. My escape from everything was wrestling. Now when I go backstage, I can't even have a joke with the boys because they're too scared to talk. I can't even be comfortable now. So that's why I'm quitting wrestling. But when I say I'm quitting wrestling, I'm quitting in-ring performance, but I'm going to make sure that my voice is still heard and that people that think similar to me have a voice. And I think it's important that it comes from a female. So I just wanted to get that out there because I think it's important that these women think about what they're doing before they do it, especially when it's ruining people's lives. Yeah. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, Kelly, listen, man, I know it takes a lot for you to say that. And I mean, obviously you have a lot to say. And I think you have a lot of important things to say. And I think you need to say them for your own mental health, emotional health. You need to say you've got things that you want to say. So here's what you and I are going to do. We're going to continue a relationship going forward. You know, I have a platform, you know, Russo's brand. I'm always adding. I think definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, you could be a part of that, and you could do something there. It would be a paying gig. Nobody works for me for free. I don't work that way. But I am. This first time we've met, we never met before. We had a couple of exchanges. I am very, 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 very impressed by you. I am moved by what you have to say. I think what you have to say is important. So we will continue our conversations in private, and I am going to help you along because I believe in you.
Thank you. I mean, it means a lot that you brought me on here, and I chose to speak to you because you were the man that wrote the stories that I fell in love with that got me into wrestling. So
I really appreciate that, even though I know a lot of people are not going to talk to you anymore just for talking.
I don't care.
But anyway, Kellyanne, do you want to now, if people watch this show and they hear this story and they want to reach out to you, do you want to tell them how they can get in contact with you?
Absolutely. They can contact me on the old Twitter, which is Kellyanne Fiend C. And then on Instagram, it's Kellyanne Fiend Club. And that's about it. They're the only two. I should create an email. I haven't gotten around to that. I've kind of just been sitting still for a long time. So.
Well, I'm glad. Hopefully this is like the first step where you were able to get all this out. I think it was very important. That's why I said when you reach out to me and I'm reading your story, I'm like, man, you need the platform to get this. It's not that way. Listen, we didn't come on here. We didn't bury anybody. This is the wrestling business. I'm telling you, bro. This is the wrestling. I had a email exchange with Vince McMahon a week ago. This is it. Like this is the wrestling business. And when I see such good people like you, you're not there because you're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You got a lot more to offer, and we're going to continue our relationship. We're going to continue to talk, and hopefully people will be seeing more of you.
Thank you so much. It truly means a lot. Thank you.
Okay, the great Kelly, and Kelly, don't go anywhere. I'm going to end this broadcast, and then I'm going to talk to you. But guys, man, great story. Just the spirit and you being brave enough to say the things you said. I really respect you. Well, guys, I appreciate you listening. I hope we'll be seeing much more of Kellyanne, and I'll see you next time.